Okay, Town Board, we are live on YouTube, on the air, and on our live stream.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 9th work session of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
Present.
Here.
I'm present, but Carol, I can't hear you on the Zoom.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Present.
I can hear you now.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
of the
United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Today's work session will begin with the public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We will then have work session discussion topics of the 2021 audit. We have Naraki and Smith here to present that. Lake Montauk Harbor Public Partnership Agreement. That's with Brian Frank from our planning department. And proposed changes to Chapter 199 East Hampton Rental Registry. That'll be followed by liaison reports, and we do have a few resolutions. I have a sign-up sheet here, and first on the list is Susan Harder.
Good morning. I'm back.
Morning, Susan.
All right, give me a second here. Let's see. I'm Susan Harder. I listened to the New York Power Authority presentation. I have a few observations, evidence that can be helpful to you to make an informed decision. First, I heard nothing that would prevent you from using equipment similar to the town of Pepperell, a 2200 instead of 2700 Kelvin and 30 watts rather than 40. The reduction of 500 Kelvin as a trade-off for no more than 3 watts additional will reduce the amount of blue light. Blue light waves are harmful to our health, vision, flora and fauna, and our view of the night sky. You will hear from local eye care professionals about the dangers of blue light waves, which contribute to macular degeneration. The current street lights are 2000 Kelvin and have provided safe lighting for decades. The diagram NYPA showed you of the colors of light sources was deceptive because 2200 Kelvin will appear white at night and still has more blue light waves than the street lights being replaced. I asked the Southampton town planner if they had had a choice at the time of their conversion, would they have used the lower Kelvin at 2200? And she said yes. 2200 is the standard for Suffolk County. NYPA has presented us with their cookie cutter version, which we are not obligated to accept. It is our money, our town. We would have to live with the results of this project for decades, as LEDs have a very long lifespan. Since I am the New York State representative of the International Dark Sky Association, I've heard from communities all over the state about their dissatisfaction with the NYPA retrofit, as their choices have increased glare, light trespass, and sky glow. I took meter readings, this is a light meter, at the sample, and the light levels on the ground was too high at 40 watts, and the light trespass across the street was 10 times the maximum for light trespass on a private property. Light at night has been classified as a carcinogen and needs to be used carefully, especially around residences. Since Sag Harbor will follow East Hampton's lead, and where houses are close together, light trespass will be problematic. As to the dimming equipment, either you need a light at a safe light level or you don't. Dimming is dangerous. It doesn't meet the IES roadway lighting requirements and opens the town up for liability issues, and it's expensive to implement and administer a dimming program. Instead, streetlights can be fitted with a less expensive middle-of-the-night shut-off sensor atop each streetlight, where you know there is no need for illumination. Cars have very bright white headlights, and that needs to be factored into the calculations. Street lighting is only needed where there are cars parked alongside the road and to assist pedestrians, not on side streets in residential zones. If someone is walking their dog for 10 minutes, they can bring a flashlight. Our taxes should not be used for all-night lighting on quiet residential streets. These need to be inventoried and assessed by an independent roadway professional before the LED retrofit. Too many were installed without any rhyme or reason. Importantly, to protect the town from liability, the town needs a warranting policy for streetlights. In conjunction with national roadway professionals, I drafted one in 2015 when I was on the Energy Committee, but the committee was disbanded by Teresa Quigley before it could be implemented. We need and deserve a tailored approach to this project, not the cookie-cutter version presented by NYPA, and one that embraces the 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting. Every manufacturer, if asked, will produce the correct streetlight for you, especially since you'd be ordering hundreds, including some in 1800 Kelvin, which should be used near nature preserves, waterways, beaches, as are mandated in Florida. The greatest energy savings for this town will be by reducing the number of streetlights to only those that are useful for public safety. So I would appreciate hearing from you, any questions you have. I also took night sky meter readings, and near the samples, it obliterated the night sky, as opposed to near the current lighting, which, we were able to still see the stars. Anyway, I have some handouts, and I also have some gifts I want to give you. I want to suggest that we use bug lights at our porches, because we can go from 60 watts to 6. And I brought some for you. I'll give mine, I'll give you glasses.
Thank you, Susan.
You can use those for your porch.
Okay. I'll pass these out later. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Peter, I'd be happy to share that working guideline with you. This is a blue light blocking screen that I put in front of my television. You can also get these.
Hi, can you please talk into the mic, please?
Pardon me?
Talk into the
Can you
mic.
talk to the mic? Thank you.
Broadcast won't pick
This
it
is,
up.
this is a blue light blocking filter that you can put in front, that I put in front of my TVs, or you can put them in front of your computers as well to protect your eyes. Thank you.
So Susan, one of the things that was brought out in the presentation was that the lights are dimmed because over the course of the life of the LED lights, they degrade in wattage. So they install a higher wattage, dim it down to 14 watts, I think it is, and then have to increase the amount of light over time. After 10 years or so, the bulb starts to degrade. So if you just went with a different type of controller, how do you deal with that situation? You're just going to
Well,
have.
I do know that I do know about depreciation, which means that they ramp it up because they anticipate the loss of light.
Right, to make up
So
the
yes, in
same
that
wattage
case,
level. So
yes,
if you
in
don't,
that case, it would be useful.
okay, that's what they're proposing.
Yeah,
to
that
use
would
it
be
only-
useful.
Okay.
But to simply dim it when you don't think you need it, I think that's a problem for the
Oh, I understand
town.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were only recommending that they be dimmed in the situation.
That would be smart because, it's always been a problem that when they first put lights in, they're extraordinarily bright because they anticipate them dimming over time. Also, they said that we would not be able to adjust our tariff, if we had shutoffs, but we could definitely negotiate that with the power company. We don't have to pay for, lights that we're not using.
Thank you, Susan. Next on the sign-up sheet is Sherry Thompson. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm a resident of Amagansett, and I'm a member of the East Hampton Group of Wildlife, and I'm here in that capacity this morning. And I would like to thank you in advance for, I believe you are going to pass a resolution allowing our group to put signs up along some of the town roads saying that people should drive more slowly and be careful and save wildlife. This is a very pressing issue for me because yesterday on Further Lane, my husband and I found a rabbit that had been run over and we took it home and gave it a decent burial. We have had too many wildlife funerals on our property just this season. And I really do believe that if people slow down, a lot of these accidents could be prevented. They could either swerve or stop. I know that animals dart across the road very quickly. Sometimes it's hard to see them, but slow driving would keep all of us, animals and people, safer. So when people use the word roadkill, I hope that maybe there will be an awareness that roadkill are really creatures that were alive like us. So thank you very, very much for understanding and taking our position.
Thank you, Sherry. Leonard Green.
Good morning.
Good morning, Leonard.
I'm Leonard Green. I'm East Hampton resident and a member of Change Hampton, and I'm here to speak for Change Hampton this morning. First, I would like to thank both the town board and the Energy Sustainability Committee for their persistent effort to address the climate emergency. LED street lighting is another step in the right direction towards reducing the town's carbon footprint. It is important, however, that innovation does not produce unintended consequences. There is a consensus that higher spectrum LEDs are harmful to biodiversity. Fortunately, readily available lower spectrum amber LEDs offer a more ecological alternative. The lights used in the Atlantic Avenue survey, unfortunately, are higher spectrum. That is, they are rated at 3000 Kelvin and 2700 Kelvin, respectively. The environmentally preferred standard is 2200 Kelvin, a warmer amber light. And here's some documentation from respected environmental and scientific organizations. First, from a conference of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. From an ecological perspective, LEDs with a warm color temperature should be favored because they attract the fewest insects. Their lower emission in the blue spectrum should reduce their contribution to light pollution. Next, from the proceedings of the National Academy of Science, one of the nation's most respected scientific publications, to reduce harm to insects, people should turn off unneeded lights, dim necessary light sources, use motion-activated lighting, shield bulbs, and switch to bulbs that produce amber or red-colored light, which produces wavelengths that are less attractive to insects. And this is from the Exerci Society for Invertebrate Conservation, the nation's largest ecology group devoted to protecting invertebrate species. If you must use outdoor lighting, consider dim low voltage lighting. Lights that are motion activated or LED lights with a warm color temperature, as these are all less attractive to moths and other insects. And finally, from the Royal Entomological Society, we evaluated insect attraction to 3 types of lamps, emitting different spectra of light. White lamps, that is 3200 Kelvin, attracted far more insects. Far more insects than either yellow, 2700 K, or amber, 2200 K. This last citation addresses the matter at hand. 2200 Kelvin LED lighting is the least damaging. 2200 K is the standard for Suffolk County. Any lamp purchased by a county department after July 27, 2022 should have I quote, a color temperature no higher than 2200 Kelvin. That's from the Suffolk County Code. The International Dark Sky Association also recommends 2200 Kelvin. To minimize negative environmental impacts, IDA recommends using lamps rated at 2200 K2 and some other details, but the important point is 2200 Kelvin. Why should we care about LED impacts on insects? Why care about the fate of bugs? Insects are crucial to human life as they provide decomposition and nutrient cycling services and pest control and pollination of crops. In addition to being food sources for birds and animals, researchers have valued these ecosystems at $57 billion a year in the US alone. So to wrap up, consistent with the town's effort to do the ecologically appropriate thing, the board, we hope, will choose the most ecologically appropriate lighting. We are facing ever more alarming declines in species diversity. The loss of insects has been called an insect apocalypse. The town most certainly does not want to contribute to this catastrophe. Insects serve more than an economically necessary function for humans. And this is the important thing. Without them, the ecosystems that support life on Earth would collapse. I know it seems to be a lot to be spending so much time thinking about insects, but I don't think we often understand the ecological impact, the kind of cascading or rippling effect that one tiny little choice can have on a much larger scale. So I hope you would take this into consideration, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Leonard. Gloria Frise.
Okay, I have copies of this if anyone wishes to see it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, son.
Blinded by the light. Okay. Well played, Gloria. Well played.
Okay, so we know what my topic is.
Yeah.
We've heard from Susan and Lynn, and I'd like to echo their comments about human health and environmental health. One of the first things people think about when they think about streetlights is safety. And, how well can I see? Well, why am I here? I sit out on my front porch and it's nice and dark, or should be. I've got a bug light already. Thank you, Susan, for that. And I've got my neighbor across the street, and they've got a really bright porch light on that glares right into my eye as soon as I look out. There's a street light 2 houses over. It is shining all across my lawn, super bright. Not much fun, not much light sky. And I like to have a nice romantic dinner with my husband, John, on the front porch, and it's sort of a buzzkill. I drove around East Hampton last night looking at streetlights and outdoor lighting at houses. Came to the East Hampton town campus too. You guys are doing pretty well, mostly dark areas. There are a couple of buildings where you've got always on super bright floodlights, and not necessarily great for the environment, for night sky. And it turns out it's really not that great for safety either. It's sort of counterintuitive. A lot of people think the brighter the light, the more safe it is. In fact, what does bright light do? It makes your pupil contract so you see less well. It makes all of the shadows darker. So you're lighting one little spot, but people can hide, other things happen out where it's super dark. My husband, I'll bring him up once again. He likes walking with his flashlight. We're walking on the sidewalk where it's nice and dark. He turns on his flashlight and he's swinging it around, and it's like he's blinding me. I could see really well just walking with the skylight, with the night sky there, or whatever glow we have from streetlights. And that extra light causes glare. Your pupil contracts. You don't see as well. This is also what happens when you drive down a street. You have, it's nice and dark, other than your own headlight, it's lighting the task that you need. You have a super bright street light, you have a super bright oncoming car, you've got fixtures like on Cedar Lane, where someone has, at the end of their two-sided driveway, a pair of like massively high wattage, unshielded candles, lights, right by the side of the road, and your eye automatically swivels to the brightest light, goes to the brightest light. It's just, what we're, evolved to do, as opposed to seeing what we need to see. And all of this causes glare, diminishes your ability to see. So really, what do we need to do? We need use the amount of light you need to do something. So quantity is important. Direction, direct the light down to the task that's required. And composition, what Kelvin do we actually need? Do we need to be able to identify color as we're driving along? If we need to identify color, as opposed to motion or an obstacle, that's great. Bump up the Kelvin. You'll be able to see the color. I would argue that we really don't need to see color. We just need to see where there is motion, where there are people, where there are cars. And our headlights are really good at picking out a lot. Street lights certainly help, but you don't need a high Kelvin to identify color. That's it. I could keep going, but I'm probably at my 3 minutes. I haven't timed myself. Thank you so much, and let's not be blinded by the light.
Thank you, Gloria. Is there anyone else here who wishes to address the board on any matter? Jason, do we have any callers on the line?
There are no callers on the line.
Okay, I guess we can move forward with our topics. We have, Jason, you have Naraki and Smith, Dave Tellier.
Yes, I do. Admitting right now.
Okay, great. So Naraki and Smith, our auditors, will go over the 2021 audit. Good morning,
David,
Dave.
you're on.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, welcome.
Thank you.
So today, Dave is going to take us through the results of the 2021 audit.
Yes. Does everyone have the presentation in front? Or-
No, we don't.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. I have it. I don't know if you want me to try to share my screen?
Yeah, I think if you share it, then it will be part of the broadcast. That'd
Okay.
be helpful for the general public's purposes. We all have our printed out copies
Okay.
in front of us. Yeah, we can see the screen fine, thanks.
You can see the screen? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so thank you. I'll just go right into it if we're okay.
Please do.
Okay, great. So thank you again for having us here today. I appreciate you allowing us to attend via Zoom. I just had a couple of conflicts with my schedule, so I couldn't be there in person. So thank you to everyone. And we kind of prepared something just to kind of walk you through the financial statements. Again, the financial statements for the town is probably about 150 plus pages. So I tried to summarize them about 4 or 5 sheets and try to do my best, but I'll give you all the highlights, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or entertain any comments that you have throughout the way. So first slide is just our scope of services. Naraki Smith performed the audit of the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2021, in accordance with U.S. generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. We assisted the town in the preparation of their annual financial report, which the town has submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association. It's a program relating to municipalities for excellence in financial reporting. So the town has submitted that, and we will hopefully hear word by the end of the year, I think is what they're projecting, if not the beginning of next year. We also performed the audit of the federal award programs, which is commonly referred to as a single audit. So any entity that receives more than $750,000 in federal funding is required to perform a single audit, which is a review of those award programs, in particular over the compliance aspects associated with them. So we performed not only a financial review, but also a compliance review for those federal awards. We're also required to perform a single audit relating to the state funding for the transportation area, which is mainly paving and things of that nature. So we have performed that audit as well, and as well as the justice court for the town. We will also discuss any findings or recommendations that we had on improving your accounting procedures or internal controls, and we will issue that report as well. And again, and finally, we are presenting our results to the town board here today. Just before we go into the financial statements, just a couple of little things that I always like to talk about, to kind of start the presentation, is really talking about just how did the conduct of the audit actually go? How did our interactions go with management? How did the field work go? So again, we just kind of threw together a couple of bullet points here for you. The town had a timely and accurate closing of the books and records. We commenced our field work the week of April 25th, and we were kind of in a hybrid approach, which was we were on site as well as remote, which the finance office or the budget office was providing us documents through our secure portal. And we wrapped up our field work pretty much the end of May, right around May 27th, and then went into drafting the financial statements with management, and then obviously having a detailed review done by the town budget officer as well as her staff, which was, excuse me, finalized in late July, which enabled us to file the report with the Government Finance Officers Association, as I mentioned previously. We had no material weaknesses in the internal controls as we identified them through our audit work. We had excellent cooperation. I think I'd be remiss not to give the finance office a little kudos here. Again, I always say this every year. For an entity of the size of the town with limited resources, and I don't say that as a slight by any stretch, but we're a government municipality that obviously is more dedicated to providing the services to the residents and everything else. So we're not a public company where we have 10 CPAs on staff and a large accounts payable and accounts receivable presence. We're working with the staff that we have, which again, adequate internal controls, but a great staff. Again, utmost cooperation, did a great job closing the books and records, preparing them for audit, giving us everything that we required to be able to get done in a timely manner. Not only Rebecca and Neji, but a number of individuals throughout the town, because as I mentioned before, we perform the single audit work. So we're dealing with, Tom Rule, we're dealing with some other individuals that are just, again, constantly providing us documentation. But again, we know that they have their daily duties to go about, but they were great in providing us with everything. So again, the utmost cooperation that we've come to expect with the town. But again, I think it goes without communicating sometimes. And I think, that's one of my jobs, is to kind of let you know how everybody's operating. And again, we appreciate all the efforts that they put forth. Now, just to kind of walk you through what I did was I broke it down into the various sections. So because this report is modeled for the award program with the GFOA, there are certain elements that have to be included. Whereas if you were just issuing a regular report, some of these areas would not be contained in there. But what it does is it actually gives the reader of the financials and the residents, obviously, of the town a lot more information to go through, to digest, a lot of comparative data in the back on the statistical sections that I'll talk about in a moment. But again, a very well put together report. The first section is what's called the Introductory Section. It goes from pages 1 through 15. And this includes some components just really about the town. It gives the town map, all the principal officials, an organizational chart, and then the letter of transmittal, not only from the supervisor, but also what we call the comptroller, but really your budget officer, transmitting the report to the GFOA and giving them a little bit more detail of what was going on with the town. Then it goes into what I call the meat and potatoes, the financial section, which runs from pages 16 to 110. So again, the first few pages is our auditor's report, which was an unmodified or a clean opinion, which means that the audit was conducted in accordance with U.S. generally accepted auditing standards, and that it's presented in accordance with all applicable accounting principles and standards. The next section is the management's discussion and analysis section. This goes from pages 19 through 31. This section really hasn't changed much over the years, except for obviously the content to freshen it up on a year-to-year basis. But what I've always said is what's really nice about this section that goes on for about 12 pages is it really gives a great understanding of all the key components of what's going on with the town for the current year, budget versus actual information, fund balance analysis, some, a lot of information about the larger balances, which is your capital assets, your debt instruments, things of that nature. So I always implore, again, it's 150 plus page document. If you don't have time to really read cover to cover like me, going to the management's discussion and analysis section really gives you a great understanding of where the town laid out for the year on the financial end, as well as programmatic and things going into the future. So it's really a great 12-page read to go through. After that, the town actually has two sets of financial statements. One is called the government-wide financial statements. This is on the full accrual basis of accounting. So here it's modeled. These financial statements are modeled towards a for-profit entity. So you have all your debt is really it's not revenue for the town. Obviously, it's a liability that's paid off over time. Your assets are capitalized and depreciated. Things of that nature that you aren't managing on a day-to-day basis on the governmental fund level. So on a full accrual level, the town has total assets and deferred outflows of resources or assets that will come to fruition in the upcoming year of about $851.3 million. Lion's share of that sits in your capital assets, net of depreciation of about $630.8 million. And of your capital assets, again, because of the CPF fund and the acquisition of land, the large balance here consists of land, which is at $542.5 million. Now, that land is based on either purchase price or donated price, or however the town was able to come about it at that time. It doesn't get marked up for fair value. So it sits at $542 million. Obviously, on the East End, it's probably worth a lot more. But because it's CPF or Community Preservation Fund related, it's got restrictions on it for preservation. So again, so there's those contingencies on it there. You have total liabilities or deferred inflows of resources, which are kind of deferred liabilities or revenues at about $327.5 million. Again, the big balances here relate to your bonds payable of about $86.2 million, of which $13.7 million was repaid in the year 2022. In the current year, you did have a new bond issuance of $3.3 million at an interest rate of 5%, as well as two new bond anticipation notes, which will eventually turn to long-term debt. And those two notes totaled $8.9 million with interest rates ranging from about 0.5 point to about 1.5%. The other large liability, which we've talked about over the years, is the other post-employment benefit obligation, or OPEB. That totals $165.6 million with a net increase of the year of $4.4 million. So that's the liability that the town has actuarially determined to be relating to benefit obligations for not only retired employees, but current employees of the town, assuming that they will work until retirement. So that's a number that's provided to us by your third-party actuaries, and that gets updated every couple of years and trued up. This leaves you with a total net position, or retained earnings, if you will, of $523.8 million. So again, on a full accrual basis, obviously, very strong portrayal of the financial statements for the town. And again, like we said, some of the larger balances sitting in your capital assets and your long-term debt instruments that don't really come due in an upcoming or on a current basis. So then we switch gears and what's called your governmental fund financial statements. So these statements are not on the full accrual basis. They're on more of a current focus or a modified cash basis. So these are the funds which the town has somewhere between 13 and 15 funds that it manages on a day-to-day basis. And that is really segregated for certain aspects of the town. So again, these are the funds that have an annual budget that we go out to the residents to approve. And again, is modeled on the current focus. So it's things that are either will be received or will come due within the upcoming year. So it's very current oriented. All the funds, total assets, sit at $167.8 million. This primarily relates to cash that's on hand, whether it's unrestricted or restricted monies. We have total liabilities of about $20.9 million, on the governmental funds coming up, but 8.9 of that is related to the bond anticipation note that I spoke about earlier. So it's really about $12 million of liabilities that would be deemed current, which then leaves you with total fund balance of $145 million. Of this fund balance, there's 4 different categories that's kind of spread out amongst. You have $1.5 million of non-spendable fund balance. This is monies that was used to prepay health benefits for the next fiscal year. So that's money's been already spent. That's why it's captioned as non-spendable. You have $79.4 million of restricted fund balance. This is primarily within the Community Preservation Fund, which currently sits at about $70.8 million of the $79.4 million. You have $43.3 million of assigned fund balance. This is really the fund balance, the residual, or what's kind of unassigned in the various governmental funds outside of your regular general fund or your A fund. Every other fund cannot have unrestricted or unassigned monies. It has to be assigned just intrinsically for that specific purpose that fund is. Say for the highway fund. So the monies that's there, which right now sits at about $6 million of assigned funds, is assigned for specifically the highway fund and the programs related to within the highway fund. After that, then we have $20.8 million of unassigned funds or unrestricted fund balance that's within your A fund or your general fund. For the year, for your governmental funds, we had a net increase of about $25.2 million, which comes about by having total revenues and other financing sources of just over $180 million for the year across all funds. Up from the last year's about $150 million. So there's about a $30 million swing. It's really related to a large increase in the real estate transfer tax, as you know, which really is the monies that's set aside for the Community Preservation Fund. That's monies that are allocated based on home sales. So there was a very large increase from last year to this year. Your total property tax revenue is a little over $60 million and was within the New York State tax cap, which is one of the things that we have to abide by unless we break or pierce the cap, but the town has never done that since it's been in existence. You had total expenditures and other financing uses about $155 million. Again, up about $30 million from the previous year, and this related to the additional CPF or Community Preservation Fund expenditures. So there was more revenue that came in, but then there was also the town was able to use that to have increased purchases and expenditures relating to the preservation of land and easements. Your total debt service totaled $15.2 million, which was less than 10% of total expenditures. Again, I always like to caption that because that's monies that we've used in the past, but now we're paying them off over a period of time, which is really it's for the benefit of the people going forward. That's why we've been able to take out the debt service and spend it over time. So that does represent about 10% of total expenditures going forward. After your governmental funds, you have what's called the fiduciary fund financial statements. These are monies that the town holds that are not for use by the town. They're for other entities. This is mainly property tax revenues that's received on behalf of others, or the justice court, and the amounts that are within the justice court. Obviously, that's held with the justice court that has to be remitted up to the state. So those monies are called fiduciary or custodial in nature. So those have a separate financial statement and do not apply to the regular funds of the town. After that, we have the notes to the financial statements, which goes from pages 40 through 72. Presentations consistent with the prior years. There were no new notes that we really put in. There was some language changes because we did implement a new standard, which was Governmental Accounting Standards Board statement number 84, which related to fiduciary activities, which really just changed for us, really just a lot of the terminology. Again, I mentioned custodial in nature. They kind of use the term custodial more than fiduciary now. So we changed some of the wording within the notes, but again, nothing that was new to point out to go through. After the notes are certain schedules that are required These are required by GASB, or the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is what we have to abide by, being a municipality. So we have budget versus actual schedules for all the major funds that have legally adopted budgets. We have certain schedules that relate to the other post-employment benefit obligation, as well as the net pension liability relating to the retirement systems that the town's employees are a part of, which is the New York State Employee Retirement System, as well as the New York State Police and Fire Retirement System. All those schedules are required, and those are consistent with the previous year. Then we go into other supplementary schedules. These schedules are not necessarily required by GASB, but they're more for informational purposes, as well as pretty much required for your annual financial report, again, with the GFOA. So this, again, gives more information to the reader. Biggest things here is that there are, it gives you the budget versus actual schedules for all the other funds that have legally adopted budgets that are considered non-major funds, as well as a listing of your capital projects that are open for the year and how they're funded. So again, some good information. Again, nothing new from the previous year. The schedules are the same that we've included. We finish out the financial report with two more sections. The second to last is the statistical section that I mentioned previously. Goes from pages 111 through 129. Has various schedules in here relating to not only your financial trends of the town, but revenue and debt capacities. Gives some good demographic information. Again, this is a section that if you were not doing the annual financial report, that it would not be included, or would not need to be included. You could obviously include anything that you feel is necessary, but again, what's nice about some of these schedules in the statistical area is that it gives a lot of information over a 10-year period. So your financial statements, if you do go through them, are mainly on a current year focus. It doesn't really talk about prior year or give prior year information, except for within the management's discussion and analysis section, and back here in the statistical section. So those are some nice areas and schedules to kind of go through and see where we were 10 years ago and how we've changed over the course of the years. And then we wrap up with the federal single audit, which I mentioned again earlier, that because the town did receive funding in excess of $750,000 in federal funds, that we had to provide a single audit on programs. Oops, I'm sorry. I just want to get the major program that we tested was, here we go. The Section 8 Housing Choice Vouchers Program. So that was the largest program administered by the town. The town received $2.2 million in federal funds, of which 1.5 million of that was related to the Section 8 Housing Choice Vouchers Program. So we looked over that program, again, not only on the financial end, making sure that the money that we vouchered for was received and was adequate, but we go through all the different compliance elements for that specific program, which is laid out to us by the Office of Management and Budget, and we go through all those various aspects. We had no findings nor any question costs on the program. For the single audit, there are two separate audit opinions, both of which were unmodified or clean opinions on the single audit of the federal award. So that was kind of, again, a brief overview of a very large report. What I'd like to finish with is just our findings and recommendations. Again, reiterating, we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal controls as we went through them during our audit fieldwork. We had no current year findings or recommendations. Nothing that we could bring up that we felt could either improve upon or change, whether it's procedures, policies, things of that nature. I know one of the things that we did speak about with Rebecca was looking at fund balance, and as the years have gone on, we've met our. I think the town has adequately met its requirements of where we are. So maybe it might be time to start funding some future reserves, things of that nature. And I believe that's one of the things that she is going to be speaking to the town board about, which we fully agree with and implore you to look into. I think it's a good idea at this point. the town has really come a long way for, over the last 10 plus years. And that there's one outstanding prior recommendation, which is in the process of being implemented, that we anticipate being fully implemented next year. And outside of that, that's my presentation, at least our prepared presentation. Last schedule is my contact information, as well as Craig's information. He was the manager on the engagement. So, as we speak to management, but I also want to make sure the board knows, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, about anything related to the finance operations of the town, we are always available. We always value that close contact. So please feel free to always reach out to us at any time.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave. Board members have any questions for Dave?
It's pretty thorough, and I think it paints a good picture of the budgeting, that conservative budgeting that the supervisor has done over the year.
Yeah, I would just say that, we're pleased with the report. No material weakness or deficiencies in internal controls. That's always good to hear. The town's in really solid financial state right now, and we appreciate the time that you've taken and the way you've worked well with staff to produce this audit. And I want to thank Becky Hansen, the finance department, our budget director, and all the staff and finance department for their efforts in working with you to prepare the audit.
The only comment I have is a housekeeping one. It seems that the presentation that Dave gave today was different than the one we received, I guess, on Friday. So we might want to put the new one up on the website under the.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I went to the website, and ours is a little bit different what's posted, so we need to update that.
I think you highlighted in your outline some areas of breaking down what's where and within the audit, and including page numbers and such. So if we could get that from you, and we'll update it.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Again, the full report will be there for anybody who wants to read through the 167 pages, was it?
Here.
If we have any insomniacs.
Yeah, exactly. I will make sure I'll once I get off, I'll send the presentation over to Becky and make sure it gets gets adequately posted. I apologize about that.
Great. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That brings us up to the Lake Harbor PPA, the project partnership agreement. Brian, do you want to give a little background, or do you want me to just but you want to bring us up to date? I mean,
Yes.
The town board's all aware of what this is about. This is a multi-year effort with the Army Corps of Engineers, improve the navigational channel in Lake Montauk. But why don't you take it from there?
I will. Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, board members. Brian Frank on behalf of the Planning Department.
Good to see you, Brian.
Morning. So as the supervisor has shared, this has been an ongoing project for quite some time, but for maybe members of the public that aren't following it that closely, the Army Corps has been working on a study of the Lake Montauk Inlet for quite some time. There have been various iterations of the feasibility study dating back at least 2 administrations. As I know the 5 of you board members are aware, for at least 70 years, probably longer, the design of the Lake Montauk Inlet has been a 12-foot depth and 150-foot width, again, going back at least to the 1950s. And it's become apparent that has become inadequate over time. There are safety concerns. The inlet to Lake Montauk is used by as many as 500 boats per day in the warmer months. It's home to New York's largest commercial fishing fleet. The value of that landing is almost $20 million between 2012 and 2017. Over 12 million pounds of seafood lands in that port. It's the home to the Coast Guard. And alarmingly, the number of groundings of unladen vessels, boats that aren't loaded with fish or ice, leaving the inlet has increased in recent years. And as vessels have changed, that 12-foot design depth has just demonstrated to be inadequate. It's unsafe. It has required emergency dredging on numerous occasions over the years as the inlet has shoaled up. based on what's happening with the weather patterns and with storms. And the Army Corps finalized their feasibility study of making those navigational improvements in December of 2020. The town has worked closely with the Corps for at least for more than the past decade. But the feasibility study in its final form is something that the planning department believes is consistent with the local waterfront revitalization plan. It's the best plan for the inlet. It was supported by the town board at the time. And we're moving on to the next steps, and that's why we're here today. But I just for the sake of detail, it's going to take that 12-foot depth and increase it to a depth of 17 feet at mean low water, and increase the deposition basin, which is kind of the safety zone next to the navigable inlet itself. It's going to increase that to by 100 feet. So the result of that is that it's going to produce a lot more sand initially, almost 174,000 cubic yards of material. All of that material is going on the downdrift beach. It's staying in the littoral system. It's going to benefit the beaches at Soundview and Captain Kidd. It's going to be restored into the littoral system. It's going to increase that maintenance cycle to an average of 70 years, which will produce about 53,000 cubic yards of material. The cost of maintaining the inlet is borne by the federal government. It's our only federal inlet. The future maintenance costs, the future dredging operations are going to be federally borne as well. The town has an obligation to meet certain obligations as the non-federal partner in this project. Those involve both real estate and financial. The town does have an obligation to provide 10% of the construction costs. That's about $727,400. That's the town's estimated 10% cost, and that's due around this time. We have been back and forth. John Jelnicki and myself and the supervisor's office has been in the loop, as well as Becky Hansen, on the obligations associated with the PPA. That's the project partnership agreement. They involve certain real estate obligations and financial obligations. We have been back and forth with the Corps about some questions about the PPA. I think it's my belief that everybody is satisfied with the agreement in its final form, and it's ready for adoption by the town board. I'll add that we are working with the DEC right now on doing our secret coordination. The DEC is the other permitting agency that's involved in this project. We have made an application on behalf of the Army Corps to the DEC to initiate lead agency coordination. It would be the planning department's recommendation that the town seek to be the lead agency, as the town usually is on interagency projects. And that's where we are. If anybody has any questions that I can answer, if anybody is interested, any members of the public are interested in self-educating on this, if you put in Lake Montauk and Army Corps of Engineers into any of the search engines, it will take you to the Army Corps' webpage dedicated to Lake Montauk. You can read the feasibility study, all the appendices, and the environmental assessment there as well.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian or comments?
I got 3 questions, if you don't mind, and it's just more of an update that I didn't see in here. In here, it says that construction will be fiscal year 2023. Do we know when that bid will be let, or are we just getting up to that point right now? And the reason I just ask is there will be an interruption to navigable channel there for a little bit. I just want to make sure that all the fisheries or the marinas are involved or knowledgeable of it.
I hope I'm not over speaking, but I believe the target is the fall of 2023. Okay. So when that actually goes to bid, if that's at this time next year for a contractor, but I believe the intent is to initiate that work in the fall of 2023.
Thank you.
And I don't think there would be an interruption in the ability to come and go through the inlet. In the past, when they've done dredging, emergency dredging, or redredging, they start at one edge of the channel and work their way across, and they do coordinate with vessels coming and go.
I agree with you. If I use interruption, I agree with that. Just the coordination.
Right.
second one, they say the staging area looks like to be at the Gosman's parking lot.
Yeah.
On there. Now, will they redo the Gosman's parking lot as far as paving after the,
That's not covered in the feasibility study. I think that's going to get into a little bit more of the engineer and design.
okay.
Yeah,
My
that would be
understanding.
normally those kind of aspects would be in the actual bid specs and scope of work. And as you know, when the project that's currently underway at the lighthouse, rebuilding the revetment, the contractors have obligations to restore the property to whatever state is specified within the contract. In that case, it's, revegetation of native species and some regrading. So I'm sure those aspects will be.
Yeah, that's good news because I know
the contract.
Highway's been interested in repaving that lot for a while. So about as far as, and it needs it. So we'll talk more on that. And is there any discussion there or about a betterment to dredge more southerly into Lake Montauk, which will increase not just navigable, but also flow in that area? Is that coming up anymore?
I don't believe it has. I think once you get farther into the inlet, you start getting away from sand and gravel and start getting into finer sediments that requires handling them a little bit differently. And I believe it stops. I could bring up a map. The map that was circulated around shows about the footprint.
Yeah,
it basically stops at Star Island, goes just beyond Star Island. Correct. On the east and west sides. What you're referring to, David, is that interior lake channel, which over the years has silted up. It goes along the east side of Star Island by the Calico property and then cuts across the lake. And I know there's been some discussion and interest in having some sort of a dredging project there at some point in the upper part of the lake, but that's not part of this.
Okay.
This is strictly the federal navigational channel portion of the project.
Correct.
Brian, is there a timeline for this?
Well,
project?
the timeline is for the town to adopt the PPA.
Right.
When that gets sent to the Army Corps of Engineers, that triggers a little bit more of the engineering phase. And then the plan is to be able to initiate construction next fall.
And when that starts, when would it stop? If, let's say, we do and it is able to be initiated in the fall of 2023.
The dredging window usually stops by the end of December, beginning of January, and then there's a couple of weeks of demobilization as the pipeline and the equipment is removed.
There are environmental windows, which they are also going to have to comply with. One of them is winter flounder spawning season, which is, that
January 15th.
Yeah, exactly. That early winter portion. And then you have obviously nesting birds window. So I don't know that we have any documented nesting birds on that stretch of beach since there's really no beach there now.
No.
So the request of the board is going to be to approve of the PPA in quick fashion so we can try to stick to all those timeframes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So are we looking to do that next week?
So we need to complete the secret determination, right?
Well,
is that necessary before the PPA is actually authorized?
It may. I need to, not necessarily authorized, but it may be required before you can actually transfer funds to the Army Corps. And I'll continue to coordinate with legal and finance on those steps.
Great.
Thank you for the update.
We'll look for feedback on that. Thank you very much, Brian. That brings us up to proposed changes to Chapter 199, East Hampton Rental Registry. David, you want to go over those proposed changes?
Hi, David McMaster, Assistant Town Attorney. So the building department and code enforcement have run into a number of issues over the years, at least since I've been here, involving rental registry updates that are pretty obviously the product of forgery or falsified information. The town code, Chapter 199, as it's written now, has no mechanism for the building department or code enforcement to revoke those rental registries, which is problematic. So the proposed changes that I've circulated to the board would cover those contingencies, and the draft reads that a rental registry issued pursuant to this chapter may be revoked in a written determination by the principal building inspector that, one, the rental registry application was forged and/or fraudulent, or that the property does not have a current certificate of occupancy, with the exception that an open building permit shall not be the basis for a revocation of a rental registry under this section. So that just applies to the situation where a property with an otherwise valid certificate of occupancy has an open building permit. Technically, during the period the building permit is open, there's no CO for that. That would not be the basis for a revocation. That refers to a property that's never really had a valid certificate of occupancy for it. So that's really it. And I will add that this has been something that's come to our attention recently, and we do have a number of current cases in justice court that the owners of the property are claiming that the property is rented without their permission or authority. Someone close to them has filed a rental registry with purporting to show authority to rent the property, and they don't actually have it. So
an example of that be where another family member, father owns property, son rents the property out, gets the registry, rents the property out, and there's no way of revoking that under the current statute. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So.
And so is this change to the code? So this would be a public hearing that we would have to schedule for it?
Absolutely.
And is this cover everything you would need for any trigger points, anything that you're seeing out there?
Yes, from what I've seen, I've actually, I know Ann is out this week, but I still am waiting to hear back from her about what she thinks.
So Ann Glennon, the building.
Yes.
Principal building inspector.
Correct, because she is the one that, according to this, would have to make the written determination. So I've talked about this in general with her, and it was her idea that we need to add the language about the certificate of occupancy is in the building permit. So we have had some communication about this. We just need to make sure we're on the same page for the final version. But
so you'll apprise us if there's any change in any suggested language.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to me, this all makes perfect sense on there then too. We're seeing people do the workarounds in many different aspects of the town code. And this is one there that I think we should get in front of, and it's reasonable. One thing I want to bring to the board is I believe for the time and effort that this permit now we're seeing is taking to administer in our town, I think our permit fees are too low on this. I know that's not a public hearing that can be done through resolution, but I think that we should be looking at increasing the fee for the rental registry permit, specifically since it's not in line with what other municipalities are doing. And also, it's also a 2-year permit on there then too, that I think is recoupable by the cost of rentals that are out there right now. So I'd like to talk to the board more about that. Maybe we can.
I agree, David. Our fees should always be, covering the administrative costs of administering, permits. So it's $100 for 2 years currently, and something we can look at. Okay. Any other questions for David McMaster?
I don't have any questions. I just would like to say, in the light of what happened in Hvac with a fire in a rental property that was not registered, nor had, at this time, it doesn't appear to have had all of the needed permits. So I just, beware. There are going to be lawsuits now stemming from this loss of life, which, so I think it behooves everyone that is renting their property to get it done correctly. If it's not done correctly, you're putting yourselves in jeopardy and those that rent your house.
That's a very good point, Sylvia, and that was a very tragic example of safety, perhaps safety regulations not being followed. That also, it's not just fire alarms and that aspect, but it's also pool safety.
Yeah.
pool fences and pool gates enclosures that people need to pay special attention to. And that's the purpose of having, inspections and a registry.
Yep.
Keep the public safe. Thank you very much, David. That brings us up to liaison reports.
Great.
Kathy, you have a report for us today?
I do. I had sent an email around, I guess it was late on Friday. We've gotten a request from the Montauk Food Pantry for emergency grant funding. We had done this last November. I mean, back in 2019, they were serving just over 2,600 community members, and now their numbers are, this year they expect to serve 15,662 people. It was too late last year when we gave them the funding to have gotten them into the budget for 2022 because the budget was already approved. They have made a request for the 2023 budget, but we do have, Diane Patrizio has found money in her budget from full-time salaries, so we'd like to make that request. And
Look forward to that resolution.
yeah, so I'll put that on for next week. The folks from R2 Architecture who, designing our new senior center, we've been meeting every other week with them we've gotten all the results I had said from the community engagement piece, and they'd like to present that to the board and to the community next Tuesday. So I'm going to put them on and they can make a presentation and talk about how we're going to do the next steps is how we program the building. I also had a delightful afternoon on Friday. I had the pleasure of going over to Windmill One and presenting a proclamation to Evelyn Fern Drake, who had turned 100. And it was especially poignant because my mom's name was Evelyn, and she too would have turned 100 this year. She was born in 1922. And Evelyn, it was just delightful the way they had a barbecue for the residents and for her family, and there's so many young people too that are working on the Windmill team, and they were all there, and it was just a really special moment. I think we sang happy birthday 2 or 3 times. Fern loved to sing, and she apparently was also a pianist, and so that was pretty neat. And then they've got a resident there, Mildred, who is one of the original tenants. So I had the ability to present her with a plaque as well. So it was a pretty special afternoon, despite the heat. We've also got, we had a lot of special events happening this past weekend. We had the Junior Lifeguard Tournament Saturday and Sunday. The Lions Club had their dog show, and it was also the annual Travis Field Tournament. And I had the pleasure of going there. My daughter played on one of the teams. And I heard back from Alexa Wolf, who organized the event, and she just wanted to thank the board and the community so much for allowing them to do this year after year. It means the world to us. Travis was an amazing and fun-loving person, and I know this would have meant the absolute world to him. The community looks forward to this every year, and they're already excited for next year. So she wanted to thank us all for being so supportive. And as long as we keep doing it, we can give scholarships to awesome kids, and that's exactly what we want to do. So they had 17 teams. They're made up of, classmates from high school and friends and neighbors. It was really a multi-generational event. And the winners in the A bracket were the Bad News Bubs, and the bracket runner-up was Hampton Glass, and then in the B bracket, it was Bud Heavies and the Jetty Grinders. And I have to say, Jetty Grinders had the most creative uniforms. I mean, that's also fun to see how thoughtful and provoking some of the uniforms are, and they all had Travis's number 11 on the back. So that was pretty neat. And then this weekend, we've got the Historical Society is having their benefit concert out at the Lighthouse from 5 to 10 on Saturday. And there's also the Sandcastle contest Saturday morning from 9 to 3 at Atlantic Beach. And I just also wanted to comment, part of this rental registry revision came out of the enforcement meetings that we hold here every Wednesday with our enforcement agencies. And it's just been really outstanding, the level of cooperation between all of the agencies. I think in the 9 seasons that I've been on the board, I think this is the most cooperative, and, you know, it's really a tribute to all of the folks that are leading our enforcement agencies. So that's my report for today.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'll just go on with what Kathy was saying just now. That Travis Field, 17 teams, there's got to be close to 200 people playing, and there were just a lot of people there participating, you know, spectators. So they're doing some great stuff down there with all of the special events that are happening this week. On a lot of help comes from buildings and grounds. You know, picnic tables, trash cans, picking up the trash, and too. So it's a big thank you to them as they move forward. It becomes real community events, which is really, really nice. Where am I? Apologize. On that peak last year, the town of East Hampton worked with state parks in investigating a southern pine beetle spread there. Last year, we removed the state actually downed nearly 1,200 trees last year. You'll see that on there. I noticed this very heavily this year. Our land stewards did go out, and they have now discovered over 1,000 new southern pine trees that are infected with southern pine beetles right now. A lot of them I see at the state park entrance onto the beach there then too, and we're going to be working with the state on that. So unfortunately, infestation is continuing to move forward, and we're trying to help as best we can as far as the town working with the state. 395 Panago. We are getting our map and plan moving forward with that with the surveyors. I would look forward to having a discussion, and we'll make it in September, about some of the other aspects of that project that we need to find out how we might want to covenant or restrict in those means. And we discussed that in the past, but as we get closer to this project becoming reality, I'd like to bring that back to the board in September. Kathy did mention the junior lifeguarding tournament happened this weekend, and now happening in California is the national lifeguard tournament, and our teams are out there. So let's all send them strength and endurance as they move forward out there. They represent the town really well. Moving forward into other parts of recreation, this week the crafts and games and crafts program will be canceled for this week. Please contact the Recreation Department at 324-2417 for further information. We anticipate it moving forward next week. The skate park is closing in on being complete right now. They have poured the flats on there. We're looking to probably be complete within 2 to 3 weeks on there. We'll get an opening date set. I say this because it is becoming very skatable right now. And I did everything not to be the mean parent dad voice on Sunday afternoon, getting about 10 to 12 people out of there. It is still a construction project, and it is still against, you are forbidden to use the Montauk skate park, even though it looks really great to use right now. So let's wait the next couple of weeks. We'll do it appropriately and allow the contractors to finish off their thing. Code and police department will be monitoring for any unauthorized use of the skate park. I'll let the board know when we're going to have that opening out there, and Peter will be getting his knee pads on, and
We'll see. See if we can find a helmet to fit my head.
There you go. Lastly, Lilac is a property on Cedar Street that we purchased. I know Peter mentioned this from the Ag Advisory Committee. I'm working with Scott Wilson to try to move forward and design an RFP for that project to get out there. They will probably be mowing it very shortly before it goes to seed. We're going to continue on that. But it's one of those locations. Do you do all at one? Do you do different locations? Do you bring goats in there? There's options, and we'll try to get that to the board as soon as possible, so that once we get out to the RFP, that the farmer would have enough time to get prepped and prepared for the following season. If he wants.
Is there a goat herder position in civil service? Or not? Could be. You need to check on that.
Yeah.
It takes 6 months to get a new job description approved. Right?
Yeah. And a staff, as Peter has mentioned in the past. You get that staff.
But
I know, not so good. Better when you did it. Anyway, that's what I have. Everyone keep enjoying August.
Thank you, David. Kate, are you
Drive
still with
slow,
us?
right?
Yes, drive slow.
We'll come to you in just a second. I guess Sylvia, you wanted to go next?
Sure. So the business committee met on August 3rd, and at every business committee meeting, we have Robert Ross on from Southampton Hospital, and he gives us an update on our area hospitals and how they're coping with COVID. In Southampton Hospital, you have 10 COVID patients. 2 are in ICU. This has been pretty steady for the last several weeks at 10. It goes down to 3 and stays around 10 at the most. Stony Brook Hospital, however, has gone up to 64. So we've seen a steady increase from over the last several weeks from 48 to 54 now to 64. They have 6 in ICU and 5 are on ventilators. Eastern Long Island has 1 COVID patient. Testing continues at Parish Hall. And just to give you the range, on July 29th through the 31st, the positivity rate was 5% on the 30th and 19% on the 29th. So you're seeing a lot of ranges within that testing. The business committee talked about the streamlining updates. The new legislation has been filed by the state. That will now allow string lights that are dark sky compliant and code compliant to be approved by the special permit that's called an administrative permit at the planning department. And so if you're going to be adding string lighting, please make sure you get that administrative permit so that you won't get anything from code enforcement. We discussed the CARP grant, and Montauk Chamber would like to see an economic impact study as part of it as it moves forward. We also talked about the outdoor dining program. Right now, 21 restaurants have taken advantage of the program, and which I think is a good number for us. So more outdoor seating for our constituents and tourists and everyone else by taking advantage of the program that we put into place as a pilot program for the next 3 years. We also discussed code enforcement actions for businesses this summer. And so I did contact Kevin Cooper, head of code enforcement, and David McMaster, our assistant town attorney, who will be in touch with the Montauk Chamber. They had the most questions about code enforcement and about any concerns on how code enforcement operates. So thank you, David, for working with us on that. And Kevin Cooper is also very happy to come to any future meeting and talk to the business community as well. We've decided to go down to 1 meeting a month. We started at the pandemic doing a business meeting every single week. We're now down to 2 per month. And so they'd like to go back to the 1 per month. At this time, it's probably going to be the first week, Wednesday in the month. We've been meeting the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of the month. I think we'll stay with the 1st, and it'll still be at Wednesday at 11 a.m. The Wainscott CAC met this past Saturday. So I was not available for the meeting, but did send them a report. They had a lot of questions on some different issues, so I sent them my report. And I already have back, this is unofficial minutes from the Wainscott CAC. They discussed airport issues and litigation as presented by Cooley. I gave them all the different litigation that was going on. Their biggest concern is there any progress in the litigation moving forward? Jim Brundage also provided operations details for the year to date. And Wainscott, the numbers to the Wainscott CAC anyway, the people that were there, the numbers of aircraft seem to have increased significantly, although the numbers, according to Jim Brundage, have actually decreased from this year versus last year. So they may have some other questions that they'd like to ask Jim as well. The Town Line Road stop signs that we had a work session on, I think it was just last Tuesday. They have some recommendations. They don't have final recommendations yet, but they will have some recommendations for that. The Wainscott Green, we talked about it last Tuesday as well. They have unanimous approval for the survey markers to go in at the Wainscott Green. And I did reach out to Cynthia Del Mastro and to Jennifer Del Mastro as well, and they're both approve of the survey markers being there. The Maidstone Gun Club also has come up several times, and so I'm going to read you what I wrote to them. They are a little divided in some of how they.
CAC?
Yeah, the CAC is divided on how they feel about the gun club. So according to the town attorney, John Zolnicki, the gun club has sent a letter of their intent to renew their lease in 2023. No specifics have been discussed between the town board and the gun club yet. The gun club is used by our local police officers for training. So I asked Chief Mike Sarlo to give me information as to how it is used. He said that 65 police officers train at the club, as well as 5 part-time officers. Once a year at different times and dates, 15 Marine Patrol officers and 5 court officers must qualify or requalify with their service weapon. All police officers must qualify on their patrol rifles. Also, East Hampton Town, East Hampton Village, and Southampton Village ESU teams, which are emergency service units, which are cross-trained in police, first aid, and rescue work, regularly train at the facility. Sag Harbor Village and East Hampton Village train there as well. Local law enforcement uses the facility 50 or more days a year. He really thinks it's much more than 50. My understanding is that the nearest training facility other than the gun club is in Calverton. Time away from patrolling East Hampton should be considered. Please let me know any of your comments. And so their comments are pretty much that they're sort of divided in, and they have a few suggestions for the gun club. They would perhaps like to see the land tested for any contaminants that might have happened there through different things. They'd like to have the town consider, and the gun club consider, maybe using a smaller footprint than they currently do. And is there any possibility of an indoor range instead of one that's outdoors? So those were their 3 concerns. They also talked about the southern pine beetle. Andy Drake sent a written report to the CAC. Thank you, Andy, for doing that. It was very, very good, and I think answered a lot of their questions. They may also like to have him attend a future meeting if possible. Route 114 housing was also discussed. Their biggest concern is maintaining the Wainscott School. And they may also ask Katie Casey to come to a future meeting to discuss that. I don't know, Kathy, is anyone a Wainscott member that's on your committee?
Well, Ed Reale. Is from Wainscott,
Yeah,
but
he
this
is.
is just an internal working group represented by the Sag Harbor Trust, Community Housing Trust. We've got Amato and Ortiz and Katie Casey from East Hampton Housing Authority. And then we've got, from housing is Tom Rule and Francis Bach. From planning is Jeremy Samuelson and Eric Shantz. And myself, I believe that's the bulk of the committee.
Okay, that's great. Well, I think having Ed on it is very helpful as well. So that is it. That is my report.
Thank you, Sylvia. Kate, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Peter. This morning I had a monthly South Fork Wind compliance meeting with all the state agencies and local agencies. And I have a couple of updates about that. They're, of course, still working on the substation construction on Cove Hollow Road and also on the railroad easements that they're permitted to do so. According to their agreements, a couple of updates, they've encountered no groundwater in any of these areas. They are also, folks might see a water truck out there. They're spraying down areas for dust control and to make sure that the access roads, it points back onto the town roads for their trucks are not dragging out any dust or creating clouds of dust that could create a hazard. What they're gearing up for in terms of outreach and is returning to the town roads in the fall. Sometime in in September, they'll be doing open houses and outreaches. They've already had direct meetings with some of the homeowners on Beach Lane, 3 of them that will be impacted by the installation of the horizontal directional drilling equipment. They are going to put in an amendment into the Department of State for reducing the footprint of the drilling. As happens, you make plans in advance, they get approved, but in this instance, they're able to do the horizontal directional drilling in a smaller footprint. So we'll be seeing some amendments coming down the road for that. They are aware of how dry everything is out there, and they're taking every precaution to keep safe out there. They are on schedule. However, when the rails of the railroad hit 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which has been happening lately, they have to stop work as per their agreement with the, for their own safety, as per their agreement with the railroad. So it's just an indication, along with the southern pine beetle and the drought and the water restrictions that we all should be adhering to of, the impacts of the climate crisis. However, even with those couple of delays, they anticipate and they are on schedule. And everything else is going on schedule for them. I would like to thank Tony Littman and his crew. Today they're installing a split rail fence along a portion of Gerard Drive where vehicles are leaving the roadway and doing some creative driving, doing some donuts and causing some erosion, particularly where the culvert and the road was raised. So today they're installing a small split rail fence there to prevent that. And residents walking by are already praising it and saying it looks great. So I thank them for getting out there and doing that. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Kate. I've begun meetings with department heads, their town board liaisons, our budget director, Becky Hansen, and finance staff working on the supervisor's 2023 town budget. Budget meetings will continue throughout the month. I expect to release the tentative budget in September. Board members and general public will have an opportunity to comment and to make requests in developing the preliminary budget, which will then be the subject of a public hearing and adoption in November. While the town's financial status currently is excellent, as demonstrated by the recent Moody's AAA bond rating, wage earners continue to feel the pressures of dramatically rising housing costs and a recent spike in inflation. The town needs to remain competitive in the local job market. We regraded half of the town workforce in last year's budget process, and I stated that we would need to continue to make adjustments in wages this year. No one, however, foresaw the dramatic spike in inflation caused by the war in Ukraine and the related soaring fuel costs, which have further impacted the town's ability to hire and retain staff, along with the dramatic rise in housing costs here as well. In response, we've been discussing an in-year supplemental adjustment to wages in addition to the substantial increases to employee pay base, which I plan to propose for the 2023 budget. I believe we can make these adjustments while remaining under the 2% tax cap, due in part to the better than expected revenues and performance of the town throughout the pandemic. I'll have a resolution to adopt a supplemental pay resolution next week. The specifics of the program will be announced after further consultation with my colleagues here on the town board. I want to say that we value the excellent work of our employees on behalf of the community and recognize the necessity of providing competitive pay and retaining staff and attracting new hires. In terms of other things going on, we have the wireless code amendments, which we're just finalizing. We had a public work session discussion about them. We've received planning board comments, which basically were very supportive of the proposed changes. I think it clarifies their role in the process, as well as alleviates some of what they felt were kind of unnecessary applications that could have been dealt with administratively instead of taking up planning board agenda. So they were favorable. There's still some discussion about the natural resources special permit regulations regarding tier 2 applications. So there's some further discussion about that. We'll look to hopefully schedule a public hearing on those proposed changes on the 18th. Cityscape, our outside wireless consultants, are also working on the first draft of the wireless master plan, which should be ready for discussion in early September. On the COVID front, Sylvia talked about the hospital numbers. I'll give you a breakdown of the town's testing site at 110 Steepenhance Path. Again, we test there Wednesdays and Fridays. The results are trending down slightly the last 3 weeks. We had out of 39 tests, 7 positives, which is 17.95%. I think it was as high as 23% 3 weeks ago. The last work session, I discussed the request of support for the Plum Island designation as a national monument. The East End Supervisors and Mayors Association sent a letter urging President Biden to make such a designation, ensuring that island would remain available to the public, but also preserved for its ecosystem. 25% of all North America's birds species use Plum Island at some point during the year. It's a pretty remarkable place. And that part of that archipelago, along with Gardiner's Island, which is very limited of human impacts, those two locations provide a great deal of overwintering and Passover for the Atlantic Flyway. So I'm also putting together a letter of support. Each town has been urged to express their support if they support that.
Could you forward the joint letter that we wrote that you sent to?
So we will, I have a draft. I was going to say we have a draft that I'll circulate to you. We completed that today, so other members can have a look at it, and if they approve, can sign on.
But if we could also get the other letter that you signed on to, that'd be great.
From ISMA?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. And also there's, I'm sending a letter of support to the governor for the recent legislation in the legislature that would allow towns to lower speed limits on certain roads to as low as 25 miles per hour. Currently, state law doesn't allow towns to lower speed limits below 30, with the exception of school zones. And we do have a number of rural roads, narrow and winding, otherwise, that we for years have tried to get home rule legislation to address specific roads. This would allow across the board the town to decide on its own what roads could be as slow as 25 miles an hour. Again, that will aid in our effort to address some of the safety concerns we have on some of our residential streets and rural roadways, Town Line Road, maybe not the least of which. So we look forward to also hearing from the Wainscott CAC specifically about their recommendations and comments for the stop signs. I did receive a letter from Mayor Tillotson's office. They were very pleased that we were moving forward to work with them to address those locations, and under their process, they can actually go ahead and designate stop signs. They don't go through the full process that the town has to go through to codify stop signs. So they were pleased to see that we were making those changes potentially. Let's see. Dogs on the beach. I just want to remind people that the town does not have a leash law. And, that benefits dog owners a great deal. But I would ask that dog owners please be responsible for your dogs and respectful of others in letting them off leash. I think the number of dogs being let off leash at some of the beaches has caused some problems. And if your dog, everything from dogs urinating on people's towels to taking their food, there have been situations where children's eating sandwich, have a dog snatch the sandwich right out of their hand. So, if your dog is susceptible to this kind of behavior, you probably shouldn't have it off leash anywhere around people. So I would encourage you to help us preserve our lack of leash law by making sure that you're responsible in the way that you handle your dog in public places. I wanted to report on, let's see. We just got some good news in on our bonds, which were up for sale. The bonds are 2.05%, a slight interest increase over the years to 2.08 and 2.16 for bands. That's lower than we were projecting given the current economic status in the country. So that's very good news. Given the market conditions, that's an excellent situation for us. I just got that text message from Becky Hansen, who's our budget officer. Again, I think that shows the town's overall financial status is quite strong to be able to sell bonds at those kind of rates. I think it's worth also mentioning, since we're talking about finances, that I just want to remind everyone that the cost of defending the towns against the airport litigation is fully funded through the airport fund, which is solely generated from airport user revenues and not from local property taxes and the general fund. So anything you may have heard to the contrary is fake news. We have also the weekend activity report from the police department. They had 293 total events handled. Now, you can imagine during the weekend getting that many calls. Our police, first responders are very, very busy. That included 25 residential noise complaints, 1 commercial noise complaint, 45 medical aided cases. In some cases, it's our police officer who actually get to the scene of a medical incident first. And there've been a number of instances where they actually are responsible for saving people's lives. I hope everybody keeps that in mind when you see police officer. They're there to help us, and they do a great job doing that. There were 6 DWI arrests and 116 citations issued. So while it's not been the busiest weekend we've had in terms of volume, it's certainly a very high volume. So we thank them for their efforts in keeping us all safe. There is an ongoing stage 1 water emergency. The Suffolk County Water has asked that everyone who's on public water not use their irrigation systems between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. Because most people generally set their irrigation for that time. They're having issues with pressure and water in the capacity of their system. That means that there's less water for firefighting and other emergency uses. So please do not use your irrigation systems between 12 a.m. and 7 a.m. right now. Just schedule it for later in the morning or midday, afternoon, whatever, even early evening. Make sure that our fire departments have enough water when they go to the scene. And that's it for my liaison report. I have a few resolutions. I believe Kathy, you're the first.
I do. 2022-996 is to appoint a provisional office assistant, Maria Osborne, in the town clerk's office. And the annual salary will be $35,527.49 for a 35-hour work week.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So carried.
997 is to approve,
Are we off, Kate?
approve publications for the town clerk's letter to the beach driving permit holders. This is a half-page black and white newspaper ad to be published this Thursday in the East Hampton Star, East Hampton Press, and the Sag Harbor Express in an amount not to exceed $2,350.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. I just want to also mention that the postcards that went out to beach driving permit holders noticing them that the current permits are revoked. That postcard you receive is your new permit. And we'll be getting permanent stickers in the clerk's office in October. But the postcard will be good through the end of the year, December 31st of 2022. So please hang on to that card. Don't throw it away. It's not junk mail. And we appreciate your patience. So go ahead, David.
Okay, that was approved. Right? Okay, sorry. I'd like to offer Resolution 2022-998. This is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Chapter 240 Vehicles and Traffic to provide for installation of stop signs at certain intersections in Waynescott, Town of East Hampton. They would be for stop signs on Town Line Road, north at Daniels Lane, north at Hedges Lane, north at Main Street, north at Parsonage Lane. The public hearing would be held on September 1st, 2022 at 2 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass carried.
999 is a notice of public hearing, amend Chapter 240, Section 24061, Schedule 11, parking prohibited at all times. This would be for Town Line Road, east side of it, location from the southerly road end, a distance of 90 feet north.
60 feet.
60 feet north. Apologize. And the public hearing also would be held on September 1st, 2022 at 2 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
And I have Resolution 2022-1000. This is to appoint a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and this is whereas Tim Brenneman has tendered his resignation from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Therefore, be it resolved that Joan Morgan McGivern be and is hereby appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the unexpired term of Tim Brenneman, said term to expire December 31st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
Can I just mention, I want to thank Tim Brenneman for his service. You know, he was a great member of not just the Zoning Board of Appeals, but also chair of the CPF Advisory Committee for such a long time. I hope when he has more time that he will come back. And I look forward to having Joan on the board.
I agree. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, David.
Resolution 2022-1001 is a budget modification for HVAC feasibility study, and is resolved that the town board directs the budget office to make the following budget modification for cost to perform HVAC feasibility studies at various town locations, and that is to increase the budget line for state aid mortgage tax in the amount of $17,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry.
Yeah, I didn't finish that. I'm sorry. I had to flip over and increase the budget line for subcontractor costs in the amount of $17,000.
Second.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass carried.
sorry about that. And 2022-1002 is to accept proposal for emergency operations center HVAC feasibility study. And I'm going to have a number of these, so I'm going to read the first one through. The town of East Hampton desires to replace aging HVAC systems for certain town buildings to aid in the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy and for compliance with the town's climate emergency declaration. Whereas the town board adopted resolution 2021-648 on May 20th, 2021 to obtain professional services. Whereas Nelson and Pope Engineering, Architecture and Land Surveying PPLC submitted a proposal dated November 4th, 2021 to conduct an East Hampton Emergency Operations HVAC feasibility study to recommend options and project budgets for improvements. Be it resolved that the town board accepts the proposal of Nelson Pope Engineering and Architecture and Land Surveying PLLC for professional services described in the proposal dated November 4th at a cost not to exceed $3,500, and be it further resolved that the supervisor is authorized to enter into an agreement to provide professional engineering services as set forth in their proposal, and it shall be paid from the appropriate budget account.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry.
And the next one is 2022-1003, and this is to accept the proposal for Justice Court HVAC feasibility study. And this is for Nelson and Pope Engineering Architecture and Land Surveying, PLLC, submitted a proposal on November 4th to conduct an East Hampton Justice Court HVAC feasibility study to recommend options and project budgets for improvements, and be it resolved that the town board accepts the proposal of Nelson and Pope Engineering for professional services described in the proposal dated November 4th, 2021, at a cost not to exceed $6,500.
Second.
Further, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass carried.
2022-1004 is to accept proposal of airport HVAC feasibility study. And this is, again, to accept the proposal from Nelson Pope Engineering. Hold on one sec. Sorry. My thing cut off. Okay. Nelson Pope Engineering to conduct an feasibility study at the East Hampton Airport to recommend options and project budgets for improvement. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board accept the proposal from Nelson and Pope Engineering for professional services described in their proposal dated November 4th, 2021, at a cost not to exceed $4,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass carried.
Next, I have 2022-1005, and this is to, again, accept a proposal for East Hampton Parks Facility HVAC feasibility studies. And whereas Nelson and Pope Engineering submitted a proposal dated November 4th, 2021, to conduct an East Hampton Parks Facility HVAC feasibility study to recommend options and project budgets for improvements. Be it resolved that the town board accepts the proposal of Nelson and Pope Engineering for professional services described in the proposal dated November 4th, 2021, at a cost not to exceed $3,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried.
2022-1006 is to accept proposal for sanitation facility HVAC feasibility studies. This is whereas Nelson and Pope Engineering submitted a proposal dated November 4th, again, to conduct a East Hampton sanitation facility HVAC feasibility study to recommend options and project budgets for improvement. And now be it resolved that the town board accepts the proposal, Nelson and Pope Engineering, for professional services described in the proposal dated November 4th, 2021, at a cost not to exceed $3,500.
Second.
It's okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. Resolution 2022-1007 is a budget modification for animal control. It's moving $5,500 from part-time salaries to $5,000 into overtime and $500 into health insurance buyback.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pass and carried. Resolution 1008 is a budget modification for ordinance enforcement. It's moving $35,000 from full-time salaries to $35,000 in overtime.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry. Resolution 1009 is to retain Regano LLC as airport counsel for 2022 in the matters of Long Island Airline versus Town of East Hampton Blade Air Mobility Incorporated versus Town of East Hampton and Coalition to Keep the Airport Open LTD versus Town of East Hampton. And that is at an hourly rate for $300 an hour for partners, $225 per hour for associates, $50 for paralegals, and it's not to exceed $75,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. Resolution 1010 is to approve the East Hampton Group for Wildlife signs. And it's whereas East Hampton Group for Wildlife is requested to put up to 10 signs in each hamlet. And they may be located near the Turtle Crossing signs. Or frankly, I think we're okay with them wherever you put them, just as long as they're not impeding traffic or pedestrian walkways. So do I have a second as amended?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry. Resolution 1011 is to authorize the FTI line at East Hampton Airport. This is to improve the installation of a direct circuit FTI connection to Tracon, New York, for the East Hampton Airport by Resolution 2014-155, as amended by Resolution 2014-261 and Resolution 216-199. This would be for an amount not to exceed $22,799.25 and would be for a 5-year period through 2023 through 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 2022-1012 is to install survey markers at the former Club Swamp location to mark the LGBTQ history and plus history site. These would be survey pins, basically outline the location of the pre-existing swamp.
It's just the corners.
It's just the corners.
Yeah, it's just going to be the corners of
Right,
the
and they're-
original building.
They're bronze or brass markers that are
Bronze, supposedly,
placed below the level. They wouldn't interfere. They're survey pins, essentially.
yes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
For 1013, I'll be recusing myself.
Resolution 1013 is to authorize sanitary easement at 177 Main Street in Amagansett, and resolves that the subject to permissive referendum, town board hereby authorizes town supervisor to execute an easement to install sanitary system and upgrades at 177 Main Street in Amagansett.
Second.
Carol, would you do a roll call, please?
Aye.
Recused.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry. We do have a couple of additional resolutions. I think Kathy, you have the first.
I do. 2022-1014 is to appoint part-time food service worker to Human Services, Pilar Suna, at the rate of $18.16, retroactive to August 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carry.
Is there anything else on 1015?
No, just this.
That's all I have.
Okay,
Just-
resolution 2022-1015 is appoints, one moment, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, that's what I was looking for.
The other page.
The other page. 1015 is appoint seasonal lifeguard, August 2022. This is from August 10th, retroactive, effective August 10th, 2022 through September 17th, 2022 for Daniel Sarlo, ocean lifeguard, hourly rate of $16.75.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry. Any other resolutions or matters bring before the board?
I make a motion, we go into a exec session for advice of counsel
And personnel.
and personnel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. So let's reconvene at 1:30. Does that work?
It's fine.
Fine.
All right, I'll send the link around. Stay safe, be